So a metric ton of new games have hit Xbox Game Pass recently, most notably a slew of games from Bethesda, but this video isn't filled with those as they've spent a lot of time in the news recently. A couple are included on the list, but I wanted to shine the light on others which you may have missed and don't get the attention they perhaps deserve. These include Xbox Series X and S enhanced games, but the list also crosses genres and console generations too. But all of these have something to offer and just shows once again just what insane value Xbox Game Pass is these days. But of course, if you liked the video, then please hit the thumbs up, share it around, subscribe, and leave a comment down below and let me know what games you're wanting to check out or what you're playing now. Check the description for a link to the Discord, and now that that's out of the way, let's get to the list, let's do it. Okay, so at number 10 we start with an oldie in Dragon Age Inquisition, a BioWare classic series with the latest game in that series from the Xbox One days. This still holds up in the visuals department, even if it runs at 30 frames a second, but it is smooth with no real drops and the graphics do hold up quite well overall. But of course, I'm hoping this gets a frame rate boost and a 4K option as well, as the Series X shouldn't have much trouble running that whilst keeping everything else in terms of the graphics, such as texture detail and lighting, the same. I would say that Inquisition was a step up from Dragon Age 2, but this could have definitely had some of the fat and filler being trimmed from it to make it a more focused and better paced game overall, as when the game does just stick mainly to the story, then it's at its most enjoyable, not when taking on bland and uninteresting side quests. So if you decide to play it, stick to the main narrative and some of the side quests only, but I wouldn't suggest doing them all. Very good game overall, and looking forward to the next game in the series. For number 9, we go back in time again to Doom 3, often the least spoken of Doom game, apart from maybe Doom 64, as whilst Doom 2 was really an evolution of the very first game, Doom 3 really took the franchise in a new direction, and based upon what I've read, is actually a prequel to the previous two games. And it took the third game in the first-person horror direction and toned down the fast, frantic gameplay of the originals. There's definitely fans of it and others who aren't, but back in 2004 it differed from the previous games due to there being dedicated graphics cards, so it looked very good. And even now, apart from the much more basic character models and animations, the environments do hold up, even though textures can be a bit blurry at times. But so much of the game being in the dark with minimal lighting probably helps it out. But if you're after more Doom and want to see how this one was different to the earlier games, and even the more recent reboots, then definitely check it out. There is a huge amount of Doom on Game Pass now as well. Up at number 8 is Void Bastards, and this is kind of a unique and really quite different first-person shooter to others. At first glance, it's a first-person shooter with a comic book-like art style. But Void Bastards has you boarding spaceships and fighting off the various enemies as you hunt down resources, items and upgrades to take on even more enemies, but also to repair your ship and move on to the next location. What makes Void Bastards a bit different is that it has procedurally generated parts to it. The different sorts of ships you board are pretty much the same each time, so you will learn the layouts of them, but the items and enemies, for example, will change each time you play. If you die during a level as well, you lose items such as food, but you'll keep any upgrades you have. One interesting part during my playtime was when I died and when I respawned as another character, I was really small, so aiming the weapons and just moving around was quite different, and these sorts of things is in the game's favour. It can be quite fun, so give it a chance. And at number 7 is Remnant from the Ashes, for those who are after some action that can be quite difficult at times, and is often explained as Souls-like with guns, but there are differences. One being the randomness of the environments that they can have when it comes to enemies, items and bosses, but you can also hook up with up to 2 other people to take on the game and story as well. You can create your own character as you look to upgrade their abilities as you make your way through it, but Remnant also incorporates both melee combat, plus being able to use firearms as well, such as rifles, shotguns, machine guns and others, and there is more fun to be had when teaming up with others whilst playing it as well. I would have liked to see more different weapons that could be used more often, as I felt like I was using the same guns constantly, but these can also be upgraded and improved as well, which is a bonus. The game really could use a performance update as well to 60 frames a second, as it can often drop frames, and a smoother experience would add so much when it comes to gunplay and movement, especially when several enemies are around at this difficulty. For number 6, we have EA Star Wars Squadrons, and this always had a high probability of coming to Game Pass and a part of EA Play, and now more people get to check it out. Firstly, it perfectly captures the feeling of space battles in a Star Wars game, or taking that dogfight action into the skies of a planet, as everything looks superb. From the ships you pilot to the enemy ships, the large star destroyers being blown apart and taken down, and it all runs silky smooth as well. Only adding to the atmosphere is playing with headphones on, so you can take in all of the blaster and laser sounds to transport you to that galaxy far, far away. It lacks some of the production that you would find in AAA games, as this was more budget friendly when it first released, but the game does look fantastic, as I mentioned, where it matters most, and that's in the gameplay itself. I'm hoping at some point in the future, Microsoft brings VR support to the Series X and we get to experience this in virtual reality. You probably won't stick with this game for very long, but if you're into Star Wars and arcade style flying games, then this is one to check out. Next at number 5 is Journey to the Savage Planet, and as I mentioned in another video, I'm really hoping this gets the next gen full-on treatment, or at least an official frame rate enhancement, or an FPS boost, as I just really like the art design of this world and how it blends that with its beautiful color palette and mixture of exploration, story, and first-person shooting. But this is the sort of game a large amount of gamers may not splurge full price in order to play it, but once it went on sale, or now that it's in Game Pass, the barrier to entry is much lower, and I think many will enjoy it. And it's really a great game to try out as you browse through Game Pass. As you wander around this world, you'll see various types of alien life, and many of which you'll be shooting, and the shooting mechanics aren't too bad for a game of this type, which I wouldn't consider to be an out-and-out first-person shooter. The game isn't the longest, as you'll most likely finish it between 6 to 10 hours, and the length of the game is in its favour, as there isn't a huge amount of content, and you would have seen a lot of what it has to offer in the first few hours. But regardless of that, it's just a fun game, and I hope we see more in this series somehow. At number 4 is a game I only played for the first time recently, and that's Desperados 3. And if it wasn't for Game Pass, then I probably wouldn't have played it at all, unless it was on a deep sale. But I'm very glad that I did. I'm not a huge fan of the isometric top-down style viewpoint, but I do find myself enjoying some of these games lately, such as Gears Tactics and another game on the list that I'll get to. But Desperados 3 allows players to control several different characters, each that has access to different abilities and weapons, and then it gives some freedom for players whether they wish to play it more stealth-like, creeping around and taking out guards silently and trying not to trigger the alarms, or it can be more action-focused, whereby the game allows players to pause it and then coordinate actions between all of the different characters, then let those selected options and actions all play out. I also found the graphical style and humour which runs through the game just to give it even more personality and charm, but the gameplay itself is just really enjoyable. If these sorts of games aren't really for you, I suggest you still give it a go if you have Game Pass. For number 3 we have Prey, and I brought this up in another video recently saying that this is one game that I really wanted to get some sort of enhanced treatment, and that wish has been granted, as thanks to the FPS boost, the game now runs at a smooth 60 frames a second on the Series X and S, and it just makes the game so much more enjoyable to play. Frame rates are always such a large part of how much enjoyment I get in first-person shooters, and when the frame rate is higher, everything just feels so much more crisp and responsive, which helps a lot in Prey, where enemies can vanish and reappear, and playing it compared to last gen, even on the One X, can feel like night and day. Players roam around this derelict space station where an enemy race resides, and the reason why they are there is also entertaining to find out as you take part in this alternate timeline storyline, which I won't get into. From its various different types of weapons and how you can craft items, through to the great looking graphics and an overall excellent world and level design, not only can Prey now be experienced by even more gamers due to Game Pass, they get to play a much better version on the new hardware for those who have it. Awesome game. And at number 2 we have Alice Madness Returns, and I never got around to playing this Xbox 360 game, but this definitely deserves to be played by gamers today as they venture into this twisted, dark and mad fairy tale world which combines platforming and hack and slash gameplay mixed in with some ranged combat as well. Even for an older game, it really does still hold up today within reason, and much of that reason is the visual design of the characters themselves and the colourful and strange world which they inhabit. After the death of her family, Alice now lives in an orphanage after she was discharged from a psychiatric facility. And if that doesn't at least give you a hint that the game is going to be a bit weird and dark, then I don't know what else would, as you make your way through Wonderland and meeting the famous characters of the fairy tale, such as the Cheshire Cat and the Mad Hatter. Each of its different parts all blend together and work so well to deliver what it sets out to achieve: a fun hack and slash platformer in a beautiful, colourful world that turns the fairy tale you most likely already know well into something different, and it's just great. A definite Game Pass gem. Closing out at number 1 is the excellent Wasteland 3, and another game from the isometric top-down perspective I spoke of earlier, and a game I need much more time with. But if you're a fan of engrossing and deep RPGs where choices have real meaning, even from the very start of the game, then this third installment in the long-running series is highly recommended. You can start off by creating your characters and what they will specialize in, then you'll begin the campaign and make your way through the story, meeting a bunch of characters and making decisions which can and will have effects and ramifications on events or other characters further into the game. Or again, you can make decisions right from the start that will have ramifications. From leveling up, crafting and installing mods on weapons to increase their efficiency and power as you constantly get new items and use those you prefer, whilst possibly scrapping those you don't. There is just so much to see and experience here that it can make some other RPGs look superficial and a bit lifeless. If you're after a deep and satisfying experience, then set aside some time to experience one of the best RPGs out there. Simply excellent. So there's even more Game Pass games to check out that cross a number of genres and from different console generations too. And there's something here that anyone will enjoy. But even if you think you may not like some of these, check them out anyway if you have Game Pass and have the time, as they may surprise you. But with that, like always, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, share it around, and leave a comment down below letting me know which of these you've played and what you thought, and which ones you still want to check out. Hit the link in the description to join the Discord to talk everything Xbox and gaming, and I'll see you on the next video.